Why following rich people's advice keeps you poor. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we talking about something that might sound controversial but needs to be said. Following advice from rich people might actually be keeping you poor. Now before you click away thinking this is just another bitter rant about wealthy people, hear me out. This isn't about hating on success or claiming rich people are evil. It's about understanding a fundamental problem with how success advice actually works, and why the strategies that made someone else rich probably won't work for you. By the end of this video, you'll understand the 3 major reasons why rich people's advice often backfires, the hidden biases that make their guidance misleading, and what you should actually focus on instead. Let's dive in. The survivorship bias problem. The first major issue is something called survivorship bias, and it's absolutely everywhere in success advice. Here's how it works. When someone becomes extremely successful, we naturally want to know their secrets. They write books, give TED Talks, post on social media, and share their morning routines, their mindsets, their strategies. And we listen because, well, they're rich. They must know something we don't, right? But here's the problem. For every billionaire who dropped out of college and built an empire, there are thousands of people who dropped out and are now struggling financially. For every entrepreneur who risked everything and won big, there are countless others who risked everything and lost it all. We just never hear from them because they're not on stage giving keynote speeches. This is survivorship bias. We only hear advice from the survivors, the winners, the people who made it. Their strategies worked for them, but we have no idea how many people tried the exact same strategies and failed miserably. It's like asking lottery winners for financial advice and then being surprised when buying more lottery tickets doesn't make you rich. Think about it this way. Imagine 1,000 people all start businesses using completely random strategies. Just by chance, a few of them will succeed wildly. When we ask those successful few what they did, they'll tell us their strategy with complete confidence. They'll write books about it. They'll swear it's the key to success. But it might have just been luck, and 995 people following the same strategy went bankrupt. The rich person giving advice genuinely believes their strategy works because it worked for them. They're not lying. They just can't see all the people for whom it didn't work because those people aren't in the room. The second issue is what I call the context problem. Rich people succeeded in a specific context, at a specific time, with specific advantages that they often don't even recognize. Let's take a classic example. A tech billionaire tells you, "I started my company in my garage with just a laptop and an idea. If I can do it, so can you." Sounds inspiring, right? But what they don't mention is that they started their company in Silicon Valley in 1999, when venture capital was flowing freely and the internet was exploding. They had a computer science degree from Stanford. Their roommate's dad was a partner at a major law firm who helped with incorporation paperwork for free. They could afford to work on their startup for 2 years without income because they had no student debt and were living rent-free in their parents' house. None of these contextual factors feel like advantages to them because they were just their normal circumstances. But they were absolutely crucial to their success. Try starting that same company today in a different city without those connections, while drowning in student debt and paying market rate rent, and you're playing a completely different game. This is why real estate moguls from the 1980s telling you to just buy property and hold it can be so misleading. Why? Yes, it worked brilliantly when interest rates were 12%, but houses cost $80,000. That same strategy looks very different when houses cost $800,000 in many markets. Or consider the classic advice to just save and invest early. Great advice, right? Except when it comes from someone who was earning 6 figures in their 20s, giving it to someone working 2 minimum wage jobs just to pay rent. The math literally doesn't work the same way. The context in which advice is given matters enormously, but rich people often can't see their own context because, to them, it was just normal life. This brings us to the third problem, privilege blindness. And I know, the word privilege makes people defensive. But stick with me because this is important. Here's the thing. Most genuinely successful people worked incredibly hard. They made sacrifices. They took risks. They earned their success in many real ways. But hard work alone doesn't explain success. And this is where privilege comes in. Privilege doesn't mean your life was easy or that you didn't work hard. It means you had certain advantages that reduced your barriers to success, even if you didn't realize it at the time. When a successful entrepreneur says, "I worked 100 hours a week to build my business," That's real. That's genuine hard work. But what they might not mention is that they could afford to do that because they didn't have to take care of elderly parents, or they didn't have a chronic health condition requiring expensive treatment, or they had a spouse with a stable income covering the bills. Or take the advice to invest in yourself by paying for expensive courses, coaching, or certifications. That's solid advice if you have disposable income and a financial safety net. It's terrible advice if you're one emergency away from not making rent. The problem isn't that privileged people are bad or that their advantages invalidate their achievements. The problem is that they often don't recognize these advantages as advantages, so they don't factor them into their advice. They genuinely believe that if they can do it, anyone can, because they've mentally attributed their success entirely to the factors they controlled, like hard work and smart decisions. This is called the fundamental attribution error. We attribute our own success to our skills and hard work, but we attribute other people's failures to their character flaws or poor choices, rather than recognizing how circumstances shape outcomes. Now let's talk about something even more fundamental. The strategies that make you rich when you already rich are completely different from the strategies that get you out of poverty or even just middle class. When you have money, your money makes money. You can invest in index funds and real estate. You can take calculated risks on business ventures. You can hire people to handle tasks you're not good at. You can wait for the right opportunity instead of taking the first offer. But when you're broke or barely scraping by, you're playing a different game entirely. You need money now, not in 30 years when your index funds mature. You can't take risks because one failure could mean eviction or hunger. You have to do everything yourself because you can't afford help. You have to take whatever opportunity comes along because you can't afford to wait. Here's a perfect example. Rich people love to say pay yourself first and automatically invest a percentage of every paycheck. Great strategy if you have money left over after expenses. Devastating strategy if it means your electricity gets shut off because you automatically transferred your last $200 to a retirement account you can't touch for 30 years. Or consider the advice to buy quality items that last instead of cheap items you will need to replace. Sounds smart, right? It is smart if you can afford it. But if you need boots for work and you have $30, you can't buy the $150 boots that will last 5 years. You have to buy the $30 boots that will last 6 months, then buy them again and again. Being poor is expensive because you can't afford the upfront costs that save money long term. This is why Dave Ramsey's debt snowball method, while well-intentioned, can be so frustrating. He tells people to pay off their smallest debts first for psychological wins. But if your smallest debt is a medical bill with no interest, and you have a credit card at 24% interest, you're literally paying more money for those psychological wins. That might be worth it for some people, but it's a strategy that costs money, and poor people can't always afford strategies that cost money even if they work. There's also what I call the aspiration trap. Self-help and success content is designed to make you feel inspired and motivated, and that feeling is addictive. It feels good to watch videos about morning routines of billionaires, to read about someone who went from broke to millionaire, to imagine that you're just one realization away from breakthrough success. But here's the trap. Consuming this content feels like progress, but it's not actually progress. It's productivity theater. You're not getting richer watching another video about Elon Musk's work ethic. You're procrastinating in a way that feels virtuous. And the content itself is often designed to keep you consuming, not to actually help you succeed. Because successful content creators make money from views and engagement, not from your success. They're incentivized to produce content that feels inspiring and gets shared, not content that leads to actual results. Think about it. Wake up at 5 a.m. like billionaires is a great headline that gets clicks. Slowly develop skills over years while managing your mental health and maintaining relationships is boring but probably more useful advice. Guess which one gets made into videos? The aspiration trap keeps you focused on the glamorous aspects of wealth while ignoring the boring, unglamorous reality of building financial security, which usually involves things like budgeting, negotiating a slightly higher salary, switching to a cheaper phone plan, and slowly building an emergency fund. Now let's talk about what actually helps. So if rich people's advice is often misleading, what should you actually do? Let me give you some real talk. First, focus on your specific situation, not someone else's. What are your actual barriers right now? Is it income? Is it debt? Is it lack of skills? Is it lack of opportunities in your area? Be brutally honest about where you are, because you can't plot a route if you don't know your starting point. Second, take advice from people who are 1 or 2 steps ahead of you, not people who are 100 steps ahead. If you're making $30,000 a year, advice from someone who went from 25,000 to 50,000 is probably more relevant than advice from someone who went from 0 to 50 million. The strategies are just different. Third, understand that building wealth is usually boring and slow. It's not sexy. It's not inspiring. It's stuff like packing lunch instead of eating out, learning to negotiate better salary offers, slowly paying down debt, building skills that the job market actually values, and consistently saving even small amounts. Fourth, be extremely skeptical of anyone selling you the dream. If someone is making money by telling you how to make money, think very carefully about whether their business model depends on your success or just on you buying their course. Most rich people made their money doing something specific, such as real estate or tech or business. If their current income comes from teaching others how to get rich, that's a red flag. Fifth, focus on increasing your income, not just optimizing your spending. Yes, cutting unnecessary expenses helps, but there's a floor to how much you can cut. There's no ceiling to how much you can earn. This might mean learning new skills, switching careers, freelancing on the side, or negotiating better. It's harder than cutting cable, but it has way more impact. Sixth, build your safety net before you take big risks. Rich people love to glorify risk-taking because survivorship bias makes them forget all the people who took the same risks and lost everything. You can take smart risks, but only after you have enough savings that failure won't destroy you. Don't bet the rent money on a business idea, no matter how inspired you feel. The real path. Here's what the actual path looks like for most people who build real wealth, and it's not nearly as exciting as the stories you hear. They start by stabilizing their situation. They get their income above their expenses, even if just barely. They build a small emergency fund, maybe $500 or $1,000, just enough to handle a car repair without going into debt. Then they focus on income growth. They get better at their current job, or they switch to a better-paying job, or they develop skills that the market values. This takes years, not months. It's not glamorous. But someone going from 35,000 to 45,000 in 3 years through strategic job changes and skill development has made more real progress than someone who stayed at 35,000 while reading 50 books about entrepreneurship. Simultaneously, they're handling their debt intelligently, not following some guru's one-size-fits-all plan, but actually doing the math on their specific situation. Sometimes that means paying highest interest first. Sometimes it means debt consolidation. It depends on your specific numbers. As income grows and debt shrinks, they slowly increase their savings rate. Not from 0 to 50% overnight, but from 0 to 5%, then to 10% over time. They take advantage of any employer matching for retirement because that's literally free money. Eventually, they have enough stability to make strategic investments. Maybe that's real estate, maybe it's starting a side business, maybe it's just consistent index fund investing. But notice this comes after stability, not before. This path takes a decade or more for most people. It's not a viral video. It's not an inspiring story. There's no moment where you make it. You just gradually shift from financially stressed to financially stable to financially comfortable. Now here is the mindset shift. The mindset shift I want you to make is this. Stop looking for the secret. There isn't one. Stop thinking you're one insight away from wealth. You're not. What you need is not inspiration, it's information about your specific situation. What you need is not motivation, it's sustainable systems. What you need is not to follow someone else's path. It's to understand the principles and apply them to your unique context. Rich people's advice often fails because it's based on their specific context, amplified by survivorship bias, and blind to the privileges that enabled their success. It's not that they're lying or that their advice is worthless. It's just that their advice is optimized for someone who is already playing with advantages you might not have. The good news is that you don't need to follow their path. You need to understand your reality clearly, make decisions based on your actual situation, and consistently move forward even when progress is slow and boring. Wealth building isn't magic. It's math plus time plus discipline. And the discipline part is easier when you're not trying to copy someone else's strategy that doesn't fit your life. So here's my challenge to you. For the next month, stop consuming success content from billionaires and celebrity entrepreneurs. Unfollow the hustle culture accounts. Stop watching morning routine videos. Instead, Track your actual spending for a month. Calculate your real hourly wage after taxes and commute time. Research what people in your field earn at different companies. Look at what skills are in demand in your area. That's the information that will actually help you. And if you want advice, seek it from people who are just a few steps ahead of you, who remember what your current situation actually feels like, who succeeded in a context somewhat similar to yours. Remember, the goal isn't to become a billionaire. For most of us, the goal is financial security, the ability to handle emergencies without panic, the freedom to make choices based on what we want rather than what we can afford. That's achievable, but not by following advice designed for people playing a completely different game. If this video gave you a different perspective on success advice, hit that like button and subscribe for more content that cuts through the BS around money and success. Drop a comment telling me what piece of rich people's advice you're going to stop following or what you're going to focus on instead. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.